today I want to show you the difference on how these rituals are being performed. If you'll notice the date above, I have the time of the day adjusted because I'm in Las Vegas and the event was not here. At that time, though, Mercury was exalted in Virgo. The Sun was in the last degree of Leo. This is very important right here. I'll explain this in a minute. Venus was also in Leo. Jupiter in Mercury's house of Hermetics on the mutable cross. The Moon is over the Sun pillar in Taurus in Orion. Saturn is also in Orion. They played this card as well. Everybody saw the black box. But you have to understand, when at this time is when the sacrifice is made. The ritual happens before that. Let me show you where the ritual happens. We don't get to see the ritual. We only get to see the outcome. Here was the ritual. Right here. This is what they did. And you can see. Now, why is this number so important? Again, it's the last degree of Leo, but its opposite is the first degree of Aquarius. It actually marks the door to Leo in its last degree before it enters into the position of the fall equinox. And it's also Aquarius's last degree. 3/11, 9/11, and 3/11 are the 2 days. 3/11 is the day that we see Aquarius. It's opposite. These two days are opposite each other. The 3/11. Let's come back to the 3/11. There we go. First degree of Aquarius. Right there. That's what that day is. Everything is about it. This is duality. There's a difference in knowing the tree of knowledge of good and evil and understanding it. First, you get the knowledge. Then you contemplate or ponder that knowledge till you begin to understand. Then you can have wisdom. But knowledge without understanding can be a very dangerous thing. And that's pretty much what the Bible has been. It is a double-edged sword because it's duality. And people don't I understand. In my chart, I'm Capricorn, so my opposite is Cancer. I've talked about this many times. And you need to look at your opposite. Moses showed the people the serpent on the pole, which is opposite of Aries. A lot of times it's not what's in front of us, it's what's behind us. It's not what's on our left, it's what's on our right. We must consider both. This is duality. And you think about the concept, they talk about a folding space. Folding space. You fold it like a piece of paper. You bring the opposite and the two opposites to one point. You bring them together. You fold the paper to the two dots meet that are opposite each other. But this is what I wanted to show you, and especially about, because this happens ever so often. But on this particular day, this is when the actual ritual was done. We didn't get to see the ritual. All we got to see was the sacrifice for the ritual. Okay, so here's the ritual. This is what you need to know right here. We've talked about the moon being eclipsed, this star, Ion, and what that means to a certain group of people. I don't know how many of you are versed in what they call, it's more of an esoteric Jewish, Kabbalistic, Talmudic type philosophy or ideology, but they call, what they call creator, or the first is Ion, which is the name of this star behind the moon, and Soph, which is the name of this star at the bottom of the sun pillar. And you noticed that's when it was done. The moon was here, was the ritual, and the sacrifice occurred when the moon then moved into the position over the sun pillar. Right there. In conjunction with Soph. This is wisdom here. This star is wisdom. It's the Ion Soph. The eye of wisdom. And it plays right in with Mercury. They always play the Mercury card in Virgo because that's money. That's Mercury exalted. Mercury not only rules commerce, it's not the money, it's the commerce, but he also rules logic and intelligence. But he's also a damn trickster, and they were told, they were warned not to mess with the miry clay. That's what's going to bring down Nebuchadnezzar's statue. Because Mercury's mutable. Him and Jupiter's going to mule that mutable cross. They rule it. So this is actually the downfall of Nebuchadnezzar's statue. The thing they're banking on the most. Now, let's go to today. How we do that, come down here and hit that button. It kicks us right into today. Let's come back over. Let's pull that moon back, because it's not going to be exact like it was on that day. That only happens ever so often. It's going to pull the third eye position between the two. So you've got a Mars, Ion, Moon, Aldebaran, Soph line up right there. That's how they do it. This is the ritual. We will not see the ritual. The rituals in the Black Lodge are hidden. When they do the ritual in the White Lodge, we all see that ritual. They call it church. But we don't see the sacrifice. Here we see the sacrifice, but not the ritual. Duality. It's equal and it's opposite. So this is the ritual. When do we see the sacrifice for the ritual? Right there. 410, which is opposite of 10-4, October the 10th, which is over and out. 10-4, over and out. It's right before 11 at night. It's right there on top of it. You are conjunct the star Soph, or wisdom, right in the battle axe of Orion. In the Arabic, it's not really Arabic. I don't know why we call it this. They give us the Arabic names with the Greek translations, which are actually opposite of each other. But this is anything but Arabic pictography. It's very Orient. It's very Orient. But here in the Arabic, you have the moon here, but it's the Egyptian that really caught my eye. Above the wizard. This is what they're doing. He's the wizard. This is why the magic is done here. This is the wizard. He is Sa. What they call us to Orion, the Ion Soph, where everything comes from. Go look it up. A-I-N or A-Y-A-N. They spell it different ways. The Ion Soph. That's what this is. He is Sa. He is wisdom. But it all wakes up. And we'll have red Horus. There are 3 Horuses. In Egyptian, the Pleiades is the flock. The sheepfold is Leviathan in the next stage. Red Horus is Mars. The moon is the traveler. Masons worship the moon. They do lunar astrology. It's all really based from the ancient Picatrix. Again, you got to know alchemy to read it. Horus, who binds the 2 lands, is Jupiter. He rules the tie that binds in Leviathan. He binds the 2 lands. This is the god that binds the battle of fire and ice. That's why in Rome, they always tell you the gods of our house are Jupiter and Mars. And then Saturn is the bull of heaven. I think myself this is a bad translation, but nonetheless, it is what it is. Sebeg, the crocodile, that's Mercury. Venus is the star that crosses. Back in the day, they couldn't see a Mercury transit, which we'll have one this year. So we'll get to see a Mercury transit in November of this year. But it's the Venus transits that were especially important at the time of the Egyptians, because Venus rules Taurus, that age. And then opposite Venus is Mars with that eagle. And of course the sun, Amun-Ra. But it's the Egyptian that really tells the tale of their, let's pull the moon back to the 4-9 position. And you'll see. Right there. That's why it's magic. And then we see when the magic happens, when the ritual happens, and then when they actually showed us this in the movie called The Brand. I have suggested it to you many, many, many times. It is at the Russian Brand. Now, every time a film comes out that releases too much and they start to get nervous about it, they'll make another one with the same name. They're doing that right now with Shazam, because we already had a Shazam, and the Mandela effect took that away. So now they're going to create another one for this timeline, and it's completely different than the other one. It's really crazy at what they're doing, but the same thing is going on here. But here's your ritual. This is the Black Lodge ritual, and then the sacrifice is over here, as always, to their god. To me, they're I don't care who they are. They have mixed with many peoples and many bloods. They're literally a hybrid race. But at the same time, this is a amalgamation. Every time the power shifts through the ages, there's a group of people that go and breed with the next age to maintain their bloodline in that power structure. And somehow or another they've lost themselves along the way, I do believe. Or they got stuck in the past and they're refusing to move forward. They don't want mankind to advance itself. That's why they gave us the story of the space age, so they could pace the ages. We got 2 different factions that are meddling in timelines. And then there's us, the 3rd faction. The ones that can see it. And the ones that are just trapped in it. But a lot going on right now. Here's the problem with the 4-9 ritual. Luckily, Mercury is in Aquarius at that time. But he'll still be in Aquarius. They get very lucky there. He doesn't move into Pisces until the 13th, later in the 13th. Okay, on the 14th, he's going to move into Pisces. That's when Mercury goes debilitated again, all the way into May. Just more Mercury problems through here. Before, and the other ritual, he was opposite this in exaltation. But Venus will be exalted here. Love. Venus is exalted in Pisces. Oh, that's on the 11th. Let's pull it back to today. What I really came here to talk about was the 4-9. And because since I made that video about 4-9, I have found out a lot of information I did not know at the time. That yes, Israel is having an election on this day. And here's the ritual. And that may be what it's about, is the election. And then here's where the results or the sacrifice will come. Now, also, on the 11th, right here, where they do the sacrifice, right there, 4:10, right after this, a couple hours, they are going to land the first Israeli spacecraft on the moon. The moon will actually be in Gemini at that point. I'm not sure which calendar they're going by. I think they're going by the one I'm using because of the constant Orion connection. But Gemini is, again, Mercury is heavily played in all of their rituals. The United States, 1776, the signing of the Declaration of Independence, was a day that's based on the constellation, actually, of Gemini. 1776, Gemini the sun was in July the 4th, the sun was in Gemini. We don't know the time of day. We've been given a lot of different times a day, which I've spoken about this many times too. The time of the day affects the moon. The moon stays in a sign for 2 days. So if the moon is like in the middle of Gemini, you can pretty much know, and you don't know the time you were born, pretty much it's going to be in Gemini because it takes 2 days for the moon to move through a constellation. It's the rising sign that matters on the birth time. And it has to be to the minute, not within 30 minutes. You need to know to the minute. That way, if there's a particular star on the horizon, you'll know that it affects you. And I'm witness to that. I'm actually born with Fomalhaut on the horizon. Not in the east, but still on the horizon. Keep that in mind when you're doing your own charts. I hope that everybody would learn to do their own. I've done the videos. There are tutorials. Stellarium's free. Download it. Play with it. Once you start carrying your cross on a daily basis or even a weekly basis, you'll become more and more familiar with it. You'll become more familiar with each sign and its characteristics, and each planet and its characteristics, and how those characteristics are influenced as it moves from one house to another, from one cross to another, from one state of mutable, fixed, or cardinal to another, from its state of debilitation till exaltation. You got to get to know. I will always suggest start with the root chakra, Mars, because it's your emotions, and that's what most people are most in touch with about themselves. It's either their emotions or their heart, Venus. So you start with those two, and you pay attention to them. Okay, Mars is in Taurus. This is bullheaded, right? Being very bullheaded, stubborn, immovable. Nobody's going to move me. This is your will and your emotion. And everybody's right now is in Mars. For some people, it's going to be different than others, depending on what house you're born in and what cross you're born on, how this affects you. Some people are Taurus, born with Mars in their first house. This is the epitome of what they are. Very bullheaded. But that can be good. There's duality to, there's a good and a bad, a left and a right to everything. I don't even want to use the word trick, because it's not a trick. The idea is to balance it all out. This is why it's so important when Jupiter and Saturn come together. Jupiter represents your body. That's your flesh, your body. And that's what this age worships. This is the age of Pisces. They worship the body. It's always been that way. It's always about Mars and Jupiter. Pleasure and desire and warfare and hatred and all of that that comes along with those two signs. But as we move into the next stage, or even this coming Saturn-Jupiter conjunction in Capricorn, Jupiter will be debilitated then. Saturn finally going to have some upper hand here. And for 20 years, we'll start moving away from fleshly desires. We're coming under the thumb of Saturn. He's fixing to put his thumb down. And a lot of people are going to wake up to a very bad day. I hate it for you if you followed the fake Pied Piper. I call him Peter Pan. Peter is Jupiter and Pan is Saturn. Peter Pan. Another chimera for this age. This is the Peter Pan is a chimera for Peter, Jupiter, and Pisces, and Pan in Aquarius. And we're right between those two ages. We're between Peter Pan. Everything is telling us this. The muses, it's in art. The muses speak to artists because their crown chakra and their thalamus, that's what it's in tune with. They have an art, they call it, you're born with an artistic ability. You're born with your thalamus and your higher self attuned to this frequency. So you channel the muses and you paint, or you write music, or you write lyric or literature. And what you're writing is what you're getting from the muses. And they're telling you the story. And a lot of these artists, they'll write all this stuff in this painting. And a lot of times, I don't believe they have a clue what they're painting. They're just, we call it inspiration. It's inspired. But with the twisting of the symbolism, the inspiration is backwards. It's been flipped. It's counterclockwise. And it's perverted, inverted, subverted. We've talked about the verse, the vert, the ver. We get very, every, it's the VR. As far as I'm concerned, the constellations represent consonants. And the planets represent the vowels, and it's telling a story as they move through. The planets are A, E, I, O, and U. And then we get sometimes Y, right? Isn't that crazy? I think that belongs to the moon, actually. That's why they call it the man in the moon, when it's a feminine thing. Everything about this age, everything since the age of Aries, because the age of Aries really is dominating the age of Pisces. That's why that power is still here, and it should have been gone 2,000 years ago. Because Aries is cardinal fire. Mutable water couldn't possibly overcome cardinal fire, no matter how mutable it is. So it had to settle with it. And so they play ball together, Jupiter and Mars. That's what Rome is all about. It's Jupiter Pisces, Mars Aries. War and religion. It's all it's ever been about. And it's the opposite of what it should have been in upside down water world. It's absolutely crazy. But these two peoples, Asia and Europe, have interbred several times in different positions. We call them Caucasians, Eurasians. We have many names for them. There are 3 different points in the zodiac where you have the Near East, the Middle East, and the Far East. You have 3 fires, and you have 3 waters. And they're all associated with the Asia and Europe. That's water and fire. Always has been. That's where all of these battles took place. But now they're trying to move the stage. To me, that's why they set up the United States of America Corporation. They want to turn this place into, which is Aquarius and Capricorn, they want to turn this place into the sin that they are, so that this place is destroyed. They tried to move the stage. They came in and slaughtered the red man from North America and South America. It was the biggest Holocaust in the history of this known existence since the beginning of mankind. The only other Holocaust that was bigger was the flood. That's it. And that was perpetrated, basically a natural thing. This was done head by head, scalp by scalp. And it was done by Europeans. But they were bankrolled by Asia. It was the Caucasians. That's why everybody hates the white man right now. I think now y'all can understand the difference between the wheat and the tares. They look just freaking alike. You can't tell them apart. The 10 tribes of Asia were sold over the Caucasus Mountains into Europe. And that's exactly who they are. They are the 10 ishes. They're English, Irish, Spanish, Scottish, Yiddish, Finnish, Danish. They're not Germanish. They're not Frenchish. They're not Italian-ish. Think about what I'm telling you. And then you have the Vikings, or the 6 kings. You can really look back and you think about it. We've been lied to so much in history. But if you look at it like a child, take its simplest form, what does it say? The 10 tribes were sold over the Caucasus Mountains. God calls that people Ish. So we know who the Ishes are. Even the Yids. Yiddish? Really? 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 Yiddish? They had to throw that one in there, by the way. That's the 13th. That's another invented name that didn't come along till later in history. The Yiddish. But it's all about the Ishes. They're, the Ishes, the Ites, and the Ians. I think Ians are mixed. Ite is a pure and Ish is a pure. You had the Hivites, the Canaanites, all these Ites, and then you had the Ishes. And when the Ishes and the Ites mixed, you get Ians. That just seems to be the way you get Rush-Ian, Ital-Ian. Everything is, and then you have, on the other side, you have the Eases, the Japanese, the Chinese, and then they destroyed all the names of the Americas, every single one of them. They called every tribe what they wanted it to be. They told him, this is your name now. You're a Cherokee now. When they were Kituwa. They weren't Cherokee. And any of you Zelda fans will understand the Cherokee or the Cherokee. Now, that's what I wanted to talk about today, was about the fact that I had no idea that it was a top election in Israel coming down. Yes, that was verified. It is happening on 4/9. And then the landing of the first Israeli vehicle on the moon. I don't know what kind of propaganda this is, or whose leg they're trying to pull, or what this is really all about. But we will soon enough find out. I'm not hearing about any of this in secular news. This is really underground news. You have to go watch. They're talking about it in some of the Middle Eastern news and the Arabic news stations, and some on the internet. But as far as the West knowing anything about this, I was clueless. So I'm trying to clue us all in a little bit. If y'all have any more information about these 2 days and what might be going down as to who, what, when, where, why, and how, give us all a heads up, would you? Don't forget, go be the kindness. Oh yeah, about the live stream. For a while, anyway, until I rectify the situation, I'm not going to be able to do them. That went, in my opinion, that couldn't have gone any worse. I was unable to stream any video. I was barely able to stream any audio, and it was pathetic quality, in my opinion. So obviously, I don't really have the amount of RAM I need to support all those programs at one time to live stream. I just upgraded enough so I could run Stellarium with my browser with my screencast. But live stream, that's a lot heavier. So we'll get to that down the road. Sorry, I had to pause there for a second. I got me a drink of water and it literally went down the wrong pipe. It apparently went down my windpipe instead of... I was trying to talk and drink at the same time. I didn't learn very much manners as a kid, I guess. It never mattered to me, and nobody seemed to care in our household. We didn't have... You could put your elbows on the table, no problem, as long as you didn't knock anything over, which I generally did.